Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Happy morning to everyone in the house. So, I would like to have some feedbacks in terms of the quality of my video and audio. So, if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, please type in hi in the comment section so that we can get this started. So let's see what we have right here in the comment section. I will need some feedback, please. All right, I can see Lil Joe. Good morning, Lil Joe. How are you doing this morning? Salam alaikum. Panos 542723. All right, okay. Bond travel. Well, I don't know what that means. I hope you are greeting me probably. Raven Crow, how are you doing this morning? Good morning to you. Hey Carrie, good morning. How are you doing this morning? 570, good morning. Cast, I see you, Cast. Good morning to you and glad to have you around today. Thumbs up, Carrie. all right. So I will take this as a positive feedback that we are good to go this morning. I'm so excited to welcome you to another promising session on the X Trend Speed Live. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I will be your host as we take a journey through the financial market, reviewing, analyzing, using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us today. Well, today is the second trading day of the week, and in fact, the week has started on a positive note for us as it blew all my expectations, as I was expecting that it's going to be with a slow start, but with the situation of things right now and with the current positions we are monitoring at the moment, we have been quite profitable so far. So well done everyone, and for those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome on board, and I'm so glad to have you around. So what we simply do here is to gather here as a community in anticipation of the New York session. We have pairs that we have been monitoring, so on Monday like this we have random pairs which we choose, and on this random pairs is what we do our monitoring on throughout the course of the week. And during these live sessions, we position ourselves in such a way that we can catch any trading opportunity lining up for us during the New York session today. So this is simply what we do here on a daily basis, 10 a.m. UTC. And well, it might look a little overwhelming at first if you are not used to this kind of experience. Well, I promise you it will take some time, but I assure you that with time you get to understand how this works, and you will be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your own individual decisions on the pairs that we have been monitoring so far. So with that being said, here you're welcome once again, and let's dive into the business. As usual, what we normally do whenever we start the day is to look at the economic calendar so that we can keep tabs on the macroeconomic events to look out for. And you all know that whenever we do our technical analysis here, whatever technical analysis we have here, we need some liquidity to move price action. And this liquidity most of the time comes in the form of this macroeconomic event where major players are actually waiting for to put some funds into the market. And for today, the Tuesday, March 28th, we have the Bank of England's Governor Bailey's speech, which already has happened, I think, a couple of hours ago. And really, I don't have an update to what actually happened, but I could get you some updates by tomorrow. And we can see that the pounds had already been spiraling to the downside with an immediate reaction to that speech by the governor of Bank of England. Well, we shall be looking at the chart to see how we should be anticipating any potential trading opportunity today. So besides that, we really don't have any other high impact event, but I also want us to take this medium macroeconomic event which is going to be affecting the US docket here, and one of these is the housing price index, which normally had some little level of indicator into the nature of the US economy at this particular point in time. And with the figures we have here, we have a minus 0.1%, which was the previous data here, and we have a consensus suggesting a minus 0.6%, which is that's a little bit on the downside there, and we might likely be seeing some traction in that regard on the chart. Then another one I would like us to look at as well is the consumer confidence, which more or less gives us a clue into the sentiments in the US economy. Is it positive? Is it negative? We shall be knowing that. And we don't have any previous data here. I wonder why that is, but I hope that with time this will get updated. So these are the events we shall be looking forward to today. And obviously we are going to be going right into the chart to take a technical dissection of the current market structure in anticipation of finding a trading opportunity ahead of the New York session today. So join me as we scale into the charts, and first commodity we are going to be looking at this morning as usual is the US oil. And if you look at what we have here on the US oil so far in the last 24 hours, price action has been massively bullish on this chart. And if you remember yesterday during our live session, we had our first buy position triggered after we identified the simple channel between the $69.80 level and the $69.10 area. So we had a situation here at the beginning of the week where price action was initially trapped within the structure, and you know what we look out for whenever we have this kind of setup. We want to remain patient, looking out for either a breakout of the $69.80 level or a breakdown of that structure for trading opportunities. And this was exactly what happened. I think during the live session yesterday, we had our buy position triggered here at the $69.80 level, and we had structures at the $70.20 area where I said we shall be adding more position in that regard. And I also included here yesterday that if price action ever breaks out of the $71 level, we shall be adding more position to our existing trade. And look at what we have here in the last 24 hours. We had 3 positions running. We had the first one here, we had a second one at the $70.20, and we had a third one at the $71 area. And in fact, if we had held the position, price action hits the TP target at the $73 level with approximately 800 pips in profit on all 3 positions in total. That's a quite massive move for just the first trading day of the week, and congrats to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey. So well done, guys. And as we head into the New York session today, what is our plans? What are our expectations? What do we want to be seeing on the chart for us to buy, or what do we want to be seeing on the chart for us to sell? Well, if we look at the current market structure here, so allow me to zoom into what has been happening in this market in the last let me see, how many hours is this? I think about 15-16 hours right now. You will notice that as soon as price hits the TP target at the $73 area, we begin to see some selling pressure resume around that area. And in fact, this led into a situation here where price was caught within a channel here, just right within the 73 and the $72.50 level, to give us that indecision phase around that area, which lasted about 10 hours, I guess, on this market. And during the early hours of today, we finally saw the breakout of the $73 level. And you all know what we look out for whenever we identify this kind of simple setup. A breakout of that channel will definitely be giving us a clue into where price action is likely going to be going for the day. And if you are part of this trade, that is, you took advantage of the breakout of the structure, wonderful to you for being on standby to have caught this move, as you will currently be running with a minimum of about 30 pips in profit at this point. So if you are taking advantage of that move right there, what you want to be doing is to move your stop loss accordingly to secure this current position. At least you could have your stop loss somewhere around your entry zone to secure this position while we wait out and watch our price action will continue to play out here in the next couple of hours. And obviously you want to be having at your entry point, and you don't want to be too compulsive trying to hold on to whatever position you have had so far since the breakout of the 73. We have made profit this week on the US oil, so we are not too compulsive to be too economical with our position. And for those who had missed out this opportunity at the $73 area, what do we intend to do at this particular point in time? Well, if you had missed out on that breakout on the $73 area, I will be advising you to hold on at this particular point in time, as you don't want to be jumping in on a moving train. So what I will be suggesting at this current structure is there is a likelihood that price action could come back and do a retest of that structure. And we all know from a technical standpoint that whenever price action breaks out of a key structure like this, there is a high chance that price action comes back to do a retest of the structure, where the resumption of buying pressure above such a level will be anticipating another move in the direction of the prior leading price action. And with the situation of things, though we've already had a retest of structure, there's still a likelihood that price could still come back to do a retest of that level. So let's wait out and see how price action will be playing out around that area. Now, if price does not drop to the downside and instead it continues to find higher highs, well, if we look at what has been happening here in the last 3 hours, you will see that we have been witnessing some selling pressure just right around that $73.50 level to emphasize some selling pressure around that area. And if we identify such a structure, definitely we want to be highlighting it, as it's going to be one of our yardstick for trading activities for today. So in that regard, I will be highlighting that level. So we shall be labeling that area the $73.50 level, and we shall also be using it as a yardstick for trading activity. So this level is $73.50 level. I'll place it at the top right hand side of my screen right now. So we have a new resistant line since the breakout of the $73 area. And you all know that whenever we have a resistant line like that, we are selling pressure has been rejecting that level, negating all attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure. We especially on a trend continuation to the upside like this, a breakout of that level will definitely be giving us a clue into the strength of the buyers at that point. So if a breakout of the $73.50 level ever happens during the New York session today, that will have given us a signal that price action has taken out all the sell position at this area. And if that happens and we continue to see a situation on our lower time frame giving us signs of more liquidity for buyers, which will be reflected on the chart in the form of a retest or multiple rejection of that zone around the $73.50 level, we shall be looking forward to adding more position to our existing trade. So if you had missed out on that opportunity this morning at the breakout of the $73 area, you have 2 options right now. The first one, the most important one, is that you want to remain patient here, wait for price action to either come down into the $73 area to retest it in anticipation of a trend continuation to the upside, or wait for price action to break out of the structure for a buy opportunity. And if we have a retest of structure followed by buying pressure above that level, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So these are the things we shall be looking out for buying opportunity at this particular market. Now, like I always say here, whenever we have this bias, this perspective in the market, we want to ensure that we are not rigid in our approach to identifying trading opportunities. So we want to be as flexible as possible. The market is a fluid environment, and for us to be profitable and consistently profitable, actually, we need to be as fluid as possible. So if we have a perspective, we also want to take into consideration the contrary to that perspective as well, so that whenever a move comes in, beyond our expectations or goes the opposite of what we are thinking, we are already ready and on standby to be able to take advantage of that move. So in this current situation here where price action appears to be bullish and we are already holding a bullish bias in this market, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers actually coming in this particular market. And why have I said that? Well, if we zoom out a little bit and go back into how the week has started here, you can see that since the beginning of the week we've already witnessed a huge massive impulse leg to the upside here. And if you look at the structure of the situation here, you would agree with me that a retracement is long overdue in this market, as those who are taking advantage of this position right here will at one point in time probably want to be doing some profit taking activities, and this will be reflected on the chart as price movements in the form of a retracement back to this downside, probably into a golden zone area, or respecting that bullish trend line which has been supporting this bullish momentum since the beginning of the week, in anticipation of another wave of bullish momentum to the upside. So this is one scenario we are also going to be looking into as well. So there is a potential counter trend opportunity that could happen with this current structure. And if this is going to be happening, how do we intend to take advantage of this opportunity? Well, if we zoom into what has been happening here in the last 16 hours, you will see we have a support line here at the $72.50 level, which has been negating all attempt by the sellers to break down that structure. And for me personally, this level will be another yardstick for selling opportunities for me here, and that will only happen if price action probably takes us out of this current buy position at break even and continue to find lower lows at this particular point in time, leading into a situation here where price action does a final breakdown of the $72.50 level. And if this happens, selling pressure below the structure will give us a leverage and confirmation to join a sell momentum to the downside. And if this actually happens, then we will actually see this whole structure transition into a reversal pattern. This might take about 4, 5, 6 hours from now, and we might likely see price action do something like a head and shoulder pattern where this becomes the head and then probably transition into a right shoulder that will lead to the breakdown of that potential neckline at the $72.50 level in anticipation of that move to the downside. So if that happens, then we want to be selling anywhere below the $72.50 level. So I advise us to keep this in mind as we continue to monitor price action from this current area. So this is my view here on the US oil, and I hope that I was able to make things as simple as possible for you to comprehend. You can also screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your own individual decision. And if you have any questions, probably you need me to clarify a certain aspect from my explanation earlier, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So we already had a decision on the US oil for today, but I would like us to have an holistic view of the market to see the potentials of either buyers or sellers in this particular market. So we shall be scaling up into the daily time frame to see what we saw at the beginning of the week and how we had positioned ourselves to be part of this move. Well, on the daily time frame we have on our chart right now, on our screen right now rather, and with the situation of things here, I told us all that we shall be focusing on the trading activities since the beginning of this month. And if we are going to be doing that, I will zoom into here, and this was where price action started in the month of March. And we saw the situation here where price action dropped to the downside with a huge impulse leg as price action crashed all the way into that $65 level, which happened to be the lowest point price action has ever been in the last, I think, since December 2021. And one thing about the impulse leg here is that if you look at the structure critically, it sliced through two key structures before it culminated at the $65 level. And one of the structure here is this bullish trend line here, which was was supporting a bullish momentum actually within that huge channel between the $82 level and the $70 area. Now we saw the first breakdown of that key structure. Then we saw the second breakdown of that key structure. That was the $70 level, which was the first time price action will ever break down that level in the last couple of years. Now with the situation here, we have two key structures where, you know, from a technical standpoint, whenever price action breaks down a structure, we expect at one point in time it is likely going to be coming back to do a retest of that level. And with the situation here, we already have a retest of the $70 level. Price action is not respecting that structure, so it broke out of that structure. So the next line to look out for right now is this bullish trend line, where we expect that probably price will come back into that area to retest that level in anticipation of another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. This is a theoretical expectation here, and if the contrary happens, where a breakout of that level happens, then we might be in for another bullish momentum to the upside. So for this bullish momentum we are enjoying right now, we might likely be looking at the $75 level as our TP target, just right within the $76 and the $75 area, which shares a confluence with that bullish trend line for our TP target, after which we want to see our price action will be reacting to that level to decide if we are going to be adding more buy position or getting ready to sell the US oil at that point. And remember, next week we have in the OPEC Plus meeting, which is going to be, I think, the second or third meeting for this year, and that will also be an event everyone in the market will be looking forward to, and we might likely be seeing some consolidation phase around that area as soon as price gets into that trend line. So let's see how things plays out in the next couple of days. So that is that on the US oil. So we remain bullish, and if price action, let me go back to the 1 hour time frame so that I can explain what I saw there. So we remain bullish on this one. So we already have a structure here. Let me zoom in. We are anticipating the breakout of the $73.50 level to continue to the upside. But if price action breaks down the $72.50 level, we shall be looking out for selling opportunities around that area. So that is that on the US oil for today. So let's see how price action plays out in the next couple of hours or couple of days, whatever case it may be. So I will be moving on to the next pair. The next option we shall be looking at this morning is the US tech, and on the US tech we are quite profitable on this one too, as well, as we were able to take advantage of the breakdown of that support line at the 12,780 that we identified yesterday. So this is what we saw during the live session yesterday. We initially identified a simple flat channel where price action was assumed to have been trapped between the 12,855 level, which happened to be the resistant line for the week. Obviously that was the highest point, and still to this moment that is still the highest point price action has ever been for this week. Then we also had the support line at the 12,780 here, which was serving as a buying niche for participants in this market, as we were not sure if price would be going to the upside or not. And one thing I told us here yesterday is that we already saw the breakdown of that support line at the 12,780, and I told us all that this is a beautiful signal that we might be seeing a bearish momentum anytime soon. Though we were around here during the live session yesterday, I told us all that we could place our sell stop order anywhere right below the support line here at the 12,780 area to take advantage of a potential bearish momentum to the downside. And this was exactly what happened. I think a couple of hours into the New York session yesterday, we saw our price action significantly broke down the 12,780 level to trigger our first sell position for the week. And if you remember vividly, I told us all that we also have another 12,750 level here, which had some buy memory at one point in time during the early hours of the week, and we said if another breakdown of that structure happens, we want to be adding more sell position to our existing trade. And look at what we have here. In fact, we had the sell breakdown of that structure initially, and if you actually missed that move, price action even came back to give us a second chance to be part of that bearish momentum to the downside. And with a TP target at the 12,650 yesterday, remember how important the 12,650 is. I shared this on the higher time frame. I told us all what to look out for when price action gets into that structure. So we had a TP target there. So the first position was closed with about 140 pips, and the second position was closed with about 98 pips in profit. So we had roughly about 250 pips thereabout on the US tech. So congrats to everyone who has been part of this profitable journey so far. Now that we have this kind of situation right now, what is our next line of action? What do we intend to do as we head into the New York session today? Well, in order to answer that question, what we want to be doing right now is to scale up into a much more higher time frame, like the daily time frame, so that we can have an holistic point of view of what is really going on from a long-term perspective, after which we are going to align our discovery with what we have on a much more lower time frame. So scaling up into the daily time frame here, so I will be moving into the daily time frame right now. So here we are on the daily time frame, and what is our view on the daily time frame? What did we really see here on the daily time frame yesterday that made us to make the decision that we made? And like I told you earlier, I had to strip down all the illustrations I had on the US tech earlier. So you would, if you are joining me for the first time this week, you will be seeing a entirely new setup on the daily time frame. And the first thing I was able to observe here since the month of December last year was the fact that price action has been bullish on this chart. And to further buttress the strength of the buyers here, we can see our price action appear to have been going through an ascending channel, where after connecting the series of higher highs here, which you can see we had the resistance line of that ascending channel, and if we connect the series of higher lows here, we have the support line of that ascending channel. And since December last year till this moment, price action has remained within that range. But one thing we have noticed here is in the last couple of weeks now is that as soon as price got into that 12,800 level, we saw some selling pressure resume around that area. If we go to as far back as September last year, we saw how the 12,800 level had been a major determinant of price action. You can see what happened here. Since the breakdown happened here in the month of September last year, we saw that price is yet to have that strength to break out of that structure. So since that time, price action has been trading just below the 12,800. And what does this simply tells us? It gives us a clue into the strength of the sellers at that particular point in time. So we can acknowledge the presence of sellers around that area, as we can see that every attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure in the last 6 to 7 months now has been resisted by the sellers. And the same thing is what is happening here since the beginning of last week. Here we started seeing sharp rejection of that structure, and like I told you at the beginning of the week, we are going to be using the 12,800 level as a yardstick for trading activity for this week. And I told you at the beginning of the week that if price action breaks out of the 12,800, that will be a successful breakout, which will be the first time price action will be doing that in the last 6 to 7 months. But if we continue to see selling pressure below the structure, we shall be looking out for selling opportunities. And I told us all that if this bearish momentum continues, we might likely see a situation where the support line of that ascending channel might be broken to the downside to incite another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So these are the things we were looking at the beginning of the week, and what we have here, we are already enjoying some sell positions here, and price action appears to be retesting that 12,800, which further emphasize the presence of the sellers at that point. So what we are going to be doing now is to scale down to a much more lower time frame to see how we can actually take advantage of more selling opportunities if the market will be giving us this chance. So in that regard, and with the informations we have gathered here on the daily time frame, I hope we are all on the same page here to be able to decipher what is going on a much more lower time frame. Now, okay, before we go into the 1 hour time frame, I said something here on the 4 hours time frame, which I also want us to take a look at and use it to be able to be confident in whatever position we are going to be taking today, because it's very important that you are confident in whatever position, and you need quite a knowledge that will give you that leverage to be part of this trading, this profitable journey. Now on the 4 hours time frame, this is what we saw here on the 4 hours time frame, and since the beginning of the month we had this ascending channel figured out, and to further buttress this, we have another line within the ascending channel which I use to demarcate the first half from the second half of that descending channel. And if you look at what has been happening here in the last 1 week in this market, you can see how price action has been trading within the first half, the upper half of that ascending channel. And with the situation of things here yesterday, we finally saw the breakdown of that first half where price action is probably tending towards the downside here. And now we have a situation where I told you yesterday where the 12,650 was serving as our key trading yardstick for trading activity for this week, and right now price is currently trading below the 12,650. so we might likely see a situation here where price will drop into the support line of the ascending channel, probably in anticipation of another wave of bullish momentum, and if a breakdown of that structure happen, we want to be getting ready to sell. So this is my view here on the 4 hours time frame, and I think things are becoming a little bit clearer if you are following me attentively. Now when we scale down to the 1 hour time frame here, I talked about this yesterday. I told us yesterday that we should be having a sell stop order below the 12,650, as a breakdown of that structure will be giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers in this market. And following this engulfing bearish candle here during the early hours of today, I am of opinion that price action might still go further to the downside at this point. So here we have a sell stop order triggered, and if you have your sell stop triggered here, well done for being on standby to catch that move. So let's see how far this bearish momentum is going to go. And remember, we have the support line of that ascending channel here, where at the meantime I want our TP target to be there, which will be somewhere around the 12,550 and the 12,440 area to secure the third TP target for the week. And if price action breaks down, reaches that trend line, then definitely we want to be thinking of adding more position to our existing trade. So that is that on the US tech. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section. I see your comments, Steamroller. Good morning to you. I'm glad you found it well explanatory, and I hope you're having a wonderful time at work. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are good to go on to the next pair for today. And the next pair we shall be looking at today is the GBPUSD. And on the GBPUSD, we have been enjoying some bullish momentum here since the beginning of the week. So during the live session yesterday, we had a situation here where price action was already trading above the 1.22500 level. And one thing I told us all here yesterday, that for those who had missed out on this opportunity, had the breakout of the 1.22500 level, you might want to remain patient here to see if price action will come back to do a retest of that structure so that you can join that move to the upside. And this was exactly what happened during the New York session. During the start of the New York session yesterday, we saw our price drop into the 1.22500 level, a level which was broken during the early hours of the week. Remember, we had this channel identified. We saw the breakout of structure. Now we had a retest to give us a confirmation that we are going bullish for this week. And with the situation we had here, we continue to ride the mood all the way to the upside. And I told us all yesterday that we also have a structure here at a 1.22800 level, where a breakout of that level will definitely be giving us another opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. And if you take all this into consideration, the first position moved with about 70-80 pips thereabout before the bearish momentum started, and the second position also moved with about 50 pips thereabout before the bearish momentum started. And I hope you did move your stop loss accordingly to secure your current position. And if you had done that, the price action would have taken you out with a small profit, probably around 70 pips on both situation, and on worst case scenario break even if you didn't move your stop loss to secure some profit in this particular market. Now that we are going into the New York session today, how do we intend to take advantage of a trading opportunity in this market? Well, personally for me, I already had a sell position triggered this morning just right below the 1.22100 level, and I will be sharing with you in a moment why I actually sold. But at this point in time, I must have been taken out because I moved my stop loss to secure this position. And look at what we have here. So now look at the situation here. Look at what I saw here during the early hours of today. I saw that remember, let me zoom out a little bit. Let's take us a little bit to the past here so that we can understand what is really going on around this area. Now if we look at what happened last week on this chart, we saw how the 1.23500 area was a strong selling niche for participants in this market, and you can see the nature of the candles around that area. We can see sharp rejection of that level, giving us a clue into the presence of sellers in this particular area. And this led into a situation where price action broke down the 1.2280 level, breaking down this bullish trend line for the first time in a couple of weeks. Remember, we had this bullish trend line figured out a couple of weeks ago, which has been holding bullish momentum for quite a while, since on the 8th of this month. And during the course of last week's trading session, we finally saw the breakdown of that structure here. That was on Friday. And you all know, from a technical standpoint, whenever we have this kind of breakdown of structure, we expect that one point in time price may come back to do a retest of that level. And I told us all yesterday that the bullish momentum we have been witnessing so far may likely be a retracement of that impulse leg that broke through that trend line. And from a technical standpoint, I told us all that we might be seeing a situation where price may come back to retest the 1.22800 level, or probably come into the trend line, reject it, and then inside the second wave of that bearish momentum that started last week. Now, with the situation here during the early hours of today, when I started seeing the continued selling pressure around that trend line here, I was of the opinion that sellers are probably gradually coming in this market, retesting that structure, and from a technical standpoint, it's a very good signal of a possible trend continuation to the downside. So with that situation there, I identified the structure here at the 1.22100 level, which I assume to going to be serving as our yardstick for trading activities for today. And if that is going to be the case, a breakdown retest of that level will definitely be giving us an opportunity to sell the GBPUSD. So I had my sell stop order below the 1.22100 level. I actually shared this on my public platform, and we saw how price action moved about 32 pips in this direction into the 1.22800 level before this huge candle came in by pressure resume around that area, taking us out of all the sell position at this point. So right now, what are we going to be doing? What is our expectations here? Well, for me personally, as long as price remain below the 1.22100 level, I will continue to look out for selling opportunity. So the 1.22100 level will be our yardstick for trading activity for today. So I want to say something like continued rejection. So I'm of the opinion that the breakdown of the structure of the 1.22100 level has happened. We might likely be seeing price action coming back into the structure. We scale down to our lower time frame. Look out for multiple rejection. That is the inabilities of buyers to break out of that level to give us that leverage and confirmation that we might be going bearish. And if that's going to be the case, we shall be joining at the breakdown retest of any reversal pattern identified around that area. And if a further breakdown of that support line of this trend line happens, we want to be seeing it as a beautiful confirmation to add more position to our existing trade. A continued selling pressure below the structure will definitely welcome additional position, and so I'm of the opinion that the current sell setup in this market has a potential of giving us multiple entries in this market. So it's appropriate that we be on standby to be able to catch these opportunities, as we already have the structures lined out for us, and breakdowns of the structures will definitely be giving us trading opportunities in the bearish direction. Now, in as much as we're looking out for bearish opportunities in this market, we cannot ignore the potentials of buyers in this market. But one thing for sure here, for me to be buying the GBPUSD, I would not be buying anywhere right below the 1.23500 level, not at all. And the reason is that we have been seeing selling pressure around this area for quite a while now. And if we look at the daily time frame, which I shared with you on Monday, can we go through it in a moment so that we can have a better understanding into what I'm talking about here? So let's quickly run through that daily time frame and see how important the 1.23500 level has been in the past. So this is the daily time frame here, and though price action has been bullish for the last six months in this market, but one thing we observe here is that as soon as price got into that 1.24500 level here, we have been seeing some selling pressure below that structure. And with the situation here, this is where price is the 23450 level, which I was showing you on the 1 hour time frame here. That level, you see, we have the breakdown of that structure around that area. Let me highlight that area so that you can see how important that level is. So this is it right here, and you can see this place was a support line at one point in time, resistant line, and you can see we have been witnessing rejection of that area. So for me to be buying at this point, I would likely want to see a breakout of that structure, taking out all the sell positions there, and it's only then I will be confident to sell, to buy the GBPUSD at this point. So going back into the 1 hour time frame, this is what I'm trying to explain here. So we have the 1.23500 level figured out here. So I will want to see price action climb back above the bullish trend line, which has been supporting this bullish momentum for the last couple of weeks, remember, and price climbing above that structure. And if it does climb above that structure, it would have taken out all the sell positions along the 1.23500 level. And if this happens, I want to see buy pressure resume above the structure, my lower time frame, for me to have that confidence to add more position to my existing trade. So this is what I will be looking forward to buy the GBPUSD. I would not be buying anywhere below the 1.23500 level, but above the 1.2350 area. And if price action continues to trade below the 1.22100 area here, I will be looking out for selling opportunities with the hopes of adding more positions at the breakdown of key structures like the 1.22800 level, 1.22500 area, and if possible 1.22300 area for multiple entries. So that is my view here on the GBPUSD. If you have questions, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section. Mayura, good morning to you. I see you. 679, good morning to you. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are on the same page here. So I will be moving on into the next pair for today, which is the XAUUSD. Give me a minute, please. All right, so the next pair we are going to be looking at is the XAUUSD, and we have been quite profitable on the XAUUSD so far this week, as I think we scooped about 200 pips thereabouts on this one. Okay, over 250 pips on this one as we rode the move all the way to the downside. So what did we see at the beginning of the week that made us to sell the XAUUSD? Well, we saw the situation here on yesterday, where we saw our price action was trading between the 1,900 and the 1,970, and we can see that we have been seeing lower highs here, and to buttress the lower highs, we had this bearish trend line figured out connecting the series of lower highs here. Let me readjust that a little bit. Let me see, does it still line up? Okay, I think this is the lower high here. All right, Okay, so it's okay. So we had the lower highs there, we had a bearish trend line, and I told us all yesterday that we shall be using the bearish trend line as our yardstick for trading activity this week. So what this simply means is that as long as price remain below the bearish trend line here, we shall feel comfortable in our sell position. And what we saw here yesterday was quite interesting. Price continues to ride all the way to the downside. I think we were around here during the live session yesterday when price was around the 1950 level. And I told us all that for those who had missed out on the opportunity at the breakdown of that support line, we want to remain patient and look out for a retracement into structure before we want to be joining that decline to the downside. And to buttress this, we have the 1960 level identified here, where I told us all that if price action ever comes into that structure, selling pressure around that area will welcome additional sell position in this market. And right now we have a situation here where price is currently trading below the 1960 level. So if you are taking advantage of that price action below the 1960, you will currently be running with about 40 pips in profit. That is if you didn't get out at anywhere around this area. So actually price moved about 100 pips in our direction before this buy pressure resumed in this market. So if you are still in the sell position on the XAUUSD right now, I would advise you to move your stop loss to entry point or probably get out outrightly, as we might likely be seeing a reversal pattern coming in anytime soon. And why have I said this? Well, if we look at the current structure critically, well, you will see that since yesterday's New York session, we saw that since price action tested the 1944 level here, we are yet to see price action come back into that structure. And it appears that price action is finding higher lows in this area here. Look at what happened in the last couple of hours. We saw another buy pressure resume just right around the 1950 level. And if the situation persists, that is, price finds it difficult to break below the previous low, then we might likely be seeing a new higher low at this point. And you all know what that means whenever we identify a higher low in a particular market structure. It is a sign that buyers are gradually coming in. So it could turn out that the current structure we have here could transition into a reversal pattern. And if we look at what has been happening here since last week's trading session, we saw this impulsive move to the downside, going all the way, breaking down that bullish trend line and striking and culminating at the 1944. We might likely see a situation here where price action could transition into a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. This will only be valid if price action finds it difficult to break down the previous low here at the 1944. And if this turns out to bring price back into the 1964 level, well, we would have no choice than to anticipate a bullish momentum above the 1964. And if this turns out to be a reversal pattern, you know what we look out for whenever we identify this kind of thing. We want to identify a neckline area which shall be the basis for our trading activity for today. So if this turns out to be a valid reversal pattern, we already have a neckline here at the 1964, which if you look closely, it shares a beautiful confluence with that bearish trend line which has been holding selling pressure since the beginning of the week. So if a breakout of the neckline happens at the 1964, the bearish trend line also would have been broken to the upside, and a breakout of the bearish trend line will only give us a sign that the trend line may no longer have that capacity to hold selling pressure anymore, and this will also fulfill the validity of that reversal pattern we just identified here. So buy pressure above the 1964, the trend line here, will be welcoming buy position in this trade. So for the XAUUSD for today, we are not going to be buying unless price action breaches both the bearish trend line and the 1964 level. So above that area will be the most appropriate area to be looking out for buying opportunity in this market. Now, if the buy opportunity happens and price continues to the upside, Well, let me zoom out a little bit so that we can see this current structure here and look at what has been happening here since the beginning of this month. I think it will be better I scale up into the 4 hours time frame where we can see things more clearly at this particular point in time. Now look at the structure here on the 4 hours time frame here. I shared this yesterday on the 4 hours time frame where I took into consideration how price action has been playing out in the market since the beginning of this month. And when I did that, this is what I was able to find here. Saw that price action has been bullish. We had the bullish trend line to emphasize the strength of the buyers in this particular market, as you can see here, after connecting the series of higher lows. And during the course of this week's trading session, at the beginning of this week, we finally saw the breakdown of that bullish trend line, which happens to be the first time price action would break down that structure in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And with the breakdown of structure, there is a tendency that price will still come back to retest that structure. Obviously, from a technical standpoint, you all know that whenever we have a breakdown of a key structure like this, we expect at one point in time price is likely going to come back, retest that structure in anticipation of another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So if price action breaks out of the 1964, making this reversal pattern here valid, then we want to be having our TP target somewhere around the 1980 and the 1000 on the probably the $2,000 area too as well as our TP target, because this area shares a confluence with a trend line that was broken during the early hours of this week. So we shall be waiting to see how price will be reacting to that structure to decide if we are going to be selling or we are going to buy if a breakout of the $2,000 level happens. So these are my views here if this reversal pattern becomes valid during the New York session. But if it doesn't and price does not climb above the 1964, price does not climb above the bearish trend line, then definitely we continue to hold on to a bearish bias in this market. And because of this is what I was able to do here. I had to scale down to a much more lower time frame, and I shared this on my public platform, so I would like to share it with you here too as well, so that we can use it to support this our trading activity for today. So this is what I saw here on the 30 minutes time frame, and I was able to identify the simple setup here which we can use to guide our trading activity for today. So this is what I have here on the 30 minutes time frame, and look at what has been happening here since the beginning of the week. We can see that it has been bearish, so we have the bearish trend line here figured out here. And then if you look at the current structure here, the last time price action respected that bearish trend line was this area here. I think about 4 or 5 hours ago we saw price action break down the structure where the 1956 level 50 level became a strong selling niche in this market. So that area also shares a beautiful confluence with that bearish trend line. So one thing I'm looking out for to sell the XAUUSD, I told us how we are going to be buying the XAUUSD on a couple of minutes ago, but this time around I want to talk about how we can sell if the structure gives us this opportunity. So looking at the current structure here, so I have some key levels at the 1950 and the 1945 level where I think it will be good for us to be selling the XAUUSD for today. So we can see something like this. Selling pressure below the 1950 will be welcoming a sell opportunity in this market. A further breakdown of the 1945 level will be welcoming additional position here. In fact, if price action breaks down the 1945 this week, I'm of the opinion that we are going to be having a massive move to the downside. So I hope that we'll be on standby to catch that opportunity. So this is how I'm looking out for selling opportunities at this point. But if a breakout of the trend line happens, price climbs above the 1956, then we want to be buying the XAUUSD. Then if a further breakout of that neckline we identified earlier, the 1964, then we shall be adding more position as we have joined the bullish momentum early enough before even the neckline was even broken to the upside. So that's the neckline area there that we identified earlier. So I hope that we'll be on standby to catch any of these opportunities. and you might want to screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point in order to make your own individual and independent decision on the XAUUSD. So we shall be moving on to the last pair, the last instrument for today, which is which one is that? I think the XAGUSD, which was introduced to us by Steamroller yesterday. Steamroller, are you in the house? Good. I have not seen your response since my last comment on your comments. Let me know if you're around. All right, so this is the XAGUSD, and what we saw here yesterday, what was our expectations during the live session yesterday? Well, we had the structure here figured out. Let me scale up a little bit into the 4 hours time frame where things are a little bit clearer around the structure. So what we saw here on the XAUUSD was quite a simple setup that we identified here, where we saw our price action has been bullish since the second week of this month, and when we connected a series of higher lows here, we have this bullish trend line figured out. However, if we zoom into the current structure here, that is what has been happening here since last week's trading session, we can see how price action appear to have transitioned into a potential reversal pattern around the structure, and with a very sharp rejection of the $23.50 level here on Friday last week. On Thursday last week, it was a beautiful signal that sellers are still very, very strong in this market. And what we said here yesterday is that we are going to be using the $23 level as our yardstick for trading activities, where that area will be serving as a neckline of this current structure that we have here. And I told us all that if price action breaks down that structure, retest that level, we want to be joining a sell momentum to the downside. And if price action remains above that structure, that is, price climbs up, we want to see price action do a retest of that structure by pressure above that level, then we could join that trend continuation to the upside. But the way things are looking right now, it appears that the bearish momentum is stalling a little bit, as buyers are still struggling trying to take over this market from this area. And if we look at things closely here, you can see that we have a demand zone just between the $22.75 level here. Let me identify this area first of all, which I didn't see yesterday anyways, probably because of my time constraints. I didn't see these. So we had this demand zone identified here. Let me give this let me take in this a little bit, place this inside the box, and then I give this 14, and then I give this a dark color as usual. So we have a demand zone somewhere within this area here. So we have this demand zone sitting around this area, and one thing about the structure is that every time by sellers come into this area to break through the structure, we have been witnessing buy pressure from that area. The same thing also happened here in the last 8 hours in this market. So it's very, very critical at this particular point in time. Hereby needs some level of patience for us to be able to take advantage of any trading opportunity around this area. So for me here, we will need a significant breakdown of this demand zone for us to be comfortable selling the XAGUSD at this particular point in time. So I would like to see something like a significant breakdown of structure, probably retest selling pressure below that level on my lower time frame. Then I want to be joining that decline to the downside. But things are still looking very bearish here. As you can see, the bullish trend line that has been supporting this bullish momentum in the last couple of weeks here appears to have been broken during the early hours of today. So as long as price remain below the structure at the 23, you might want to be looking forward to selling opportunities. But if you are a cautious trader, you need a significant confirmation, then you would have no choice than to wait for price action to break down that demand zone, especially break down the $22.80 level to join a decline to the downside. Now, if we scale down to a much more lower time frame, like the 1 hour time frame, can we find something to play around with going into the new week today, into the New York session today? Well, look at the structure we have here. Well, this red trend line, this red line is somewhere to look out for selling opportunities below the structure will seem most appropriate. So first of all, I want us to see a breakthrough the structure want to see a breakthrough, very, very important. Then immediately a breakthrough happens, we scale down to our lower time frame, like your 5 minutes, your 10 minutes time frame. Now you want to see retest of the structure. You want to see multiple rejection of that line, giving us selling pressure. It's a sign that buyers are finding it very difficult to break out of that level. And if this is going to be the case, then we are going to be good to sell the XAGUSD for today. But if price action remains above the $23 level, climbs above the bullish trend line, then we'll have no choice than to look out for buying opportunity above that trend line. So this is how we want to be looking at the XAGUSD for today. And with this current situation here, I think it is advisable that we remain very, very patient. So to make things much more easy for us to be able to identify potential trading opportunity here, let's connect the series of lower highs here so that we can also use this as a yardstick for trading activity. So I'll be giving this a more thinner line, and let's give this a red color. So we shall also be using this as well. So as long as price remain below the structure, we feel comfortable in our sell position if we actually have our sell position triggered. But if a breakout of that level happens, that means price will have climbed above that bullish trend line, and by pressure above the structure, retest of structure, sorry, it could be a retest. Let me do the retest again. It could be something like this, retest, and then we can join that bullish momentum to the upside. So the trend line here will guide our trading activity for today. So if price remains below the structure, we feel comfortable in our sell position. But if price action breaks out of that structure, buy pressure above that level, well, we'll have no choice than to look out for buying opportunity around that area. So it has been a wonderful moment with you guys. I hope I was able to make myself clear on the financial instrument that we have taken for today. I can see some comments right now. 468 and Eunice is asking us to do something on the USD JPY. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to do that today. I'm so sorry about that. I will not be able to do that today. I'm already out of time here. Let's see something probably tomorrow. Let's see if we can fix it in tomorrow. Okay. All right. So now let's quickly run through what we talked about today for those who are not part of the beginning of the live session, so that they can have a better perspective, better understanding into what we talked about today, and so they can also be able to position themselves ahead of the New York session. So the first commodity we looked at today is the US oil, and on the US oil here, I told us all that we should move our stop loss on the current buy position, and with the way things are right now, we've already been taken out of that buy position at break even. Remember, we are still very profitable on the US oil, as we scooped over 100 pips or over 800 pips during the course of yesterday's trading session, which is quite massive considering being the first day of the week on the US oil. And I told us all that the situation here, we want to be buying above the $73 level, but with the situation right now, since price has broken down the $73 area, I will be advising us to position ourselves above the $73.57 level for buying opportunity at this point, because the sell pressure here appears to be getting stronger. It has broken down the $73 area, and I told you earlier that we might likely see price action break down the $72.50 level. And the reason why I said this is this: when we zoom out to see how price action has started this week, we saw that this impulsive move that started at around the $69.80 level, at this point a retracement phase seems long overdue. And if we look at the structure here, I told us all that the structure may likely transition into a reversal pattern in the form of a head and shoulder pattern, where we might be having price action evolve into the right shoulder here, where a breakdown of the $72.50 level will incite that counter trend opportunity. Mind you, if a breakdown of the $72.50 level happens, this is going to be considered a counter trend move, as I expect that price will retrace back into structure, probably this bullish trend line or the $71 area, for another wave of bullish momentum. So let's keep this in mind while we be part of this counter trend opportunity. So that is that on the US oil. Then we went on to talk about the US tech, which has been quite profitable since the beginning of the week. We already scooped over 250 pips on the US tech so far, and now we already have a sell position trigger just right below the 12,650. So let's continue to watch and monitor price action as it moves in our favor. And then we moved on to talk about the GBPUSD, and on the GBPUSD here, I told you I sold below the 1.22180 level here, and it appears I've been taken out of that position right now, with appearance of a buy pressure resuming at this particular point in time. And I told you that I wouldn't be buying unless price action takes out all the sell positions around the 1.23500 level, where price will have climbed back above that bullish trend line that has been supporting this bullish momentum since the beginning of the month. So if that is going to be the case, that is where I am going to be buying. But as long as price remain below the 1.23500 level, we shall remain bearish in this market. So at this point in time, I will be placing my sell stop order again back at the 1.22100 level, with the hopes that price will still come back into that structure, and if it does, a further breakdown of the 1.22800 level will be welcoming additional position to my existing trade. Then moving on, we talked about the XAUUSD, which at this point we are at an area where the potential of a reversal pattern is looking more possible at this particular point in time, as price action is yet to break below the previous structure. So despite the fact that we have a bearish trend line here, which is serving as a yardstick for trading activity, I told us all that if we consider the impulsive move that got to this point, we might likely see price action transition into a reversal pattern here, which will come in the form of a double bottom structure. And with a neckline at the 1,964, we have a beautiful confluence just right around that bearish trend line. And if a breakout of that structure happens, then we will be anticipating a reversal pattern in this market. So we said we have our TP target somewhere around the 1,990 and the $2,000 level, which will be fulfilling a technical expectation as we have the breakdown of the bullish trend line here, and price might likely come back to retest this zone here in anticipation of another wave to the downside. So these are the things I want to be looking at to be part of that bullish momentum there. Now, to sell the XAUUSD, I was able to identify a simple setup on the 30 minutes time frame, where I said I want us to be looking at this as a yardstick for a certain opportunity today. So I have a trend line here. Price still continues to remain below the trend line, but yet to break down the previous low here. So I said a breakdown retest of the 1,950 will be welcoming a sell trigger, and a further breakdown of the 1,945 will be welcoming additional sell position in this market. And I said that if a breakdown of the 1,945 level happens, this will definitely be bringing us a massive move in this market. So let's be on standby to catch that move. But if price action breaks out of the 1,956, which is looking very feasible here, as we can see we have a higher low, price is unable to break the previous low here, then we want to be buying at this point. So that means we will have bought earlier than expected, as we have the neckline of that reversal pattern that we identified earlier had the 1,964. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD. Then we went on to close the day with the XAGUSD, a pair that Steamroller introduced to us this week. And one thing we saw here, we found a demand zone here, which is actually bringing in some level of doubt about sellers coming in at this particular point in time. So we said to further help us to be able to manage this trade efficiently during the New York session today, we have a trend line here which we connected. So we said if a breakout of the trend line happened, price would have climbed above that bullish trend line, then by pressure above the structure will definitely be giving us an opportunity to buy. And for sellers in this particular market, I want to see price action take out this demand zone. Selling pressure resumes below the structure for me to be joining a bearish move to the downside. So it's quite a simple setup here on the XAGUSD. So I hope that we'll be on standby to be able to catch any of these opportunities when they finally happen. So that is that on the XAGUSD, and I think that is that for today. And it has been a wonderful moment with you guys. And I wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I hope that you are well equipped to be able to take advantage of any trading opportunities that the market presents to us during the course of this session. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye bye.